You think you know Machiavelli? You think he was all about ruthless, backstabbing power grabs? That's what many people get wrong, and it's costing you your edge. Look, for generations, Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince has been misunderstood, reduced to a caricature of pure evil. But the truth? It's far more nuanced, and frankly, way more useful. If you're trying to understand leadership, decision-making, or even just human nature, you're probably missing the most crucial parts. Today, we're tearing down the myths. We're going to uncover what Machiavelli actually taught, why it's been misinterpreted, and how you can use the real lessons to navigate your own world, whether that's business, politics, or personal goals. Stick around, because the last piece of advice, it changes how you see leadership entirely. So, Machiavelli. Written in the early 1500s, The Prince was written as a political guide for rulers. But here's the kicker. It wasn't primarily written for the general public. It was likely written for the Medici family, who had recently regained power in Florence. Think of it less as a universal guide to tyranny, and more as a very specific, almost personal memo on how to survive and maintain control in a brutally unstable political landscape. The common interpretation? That Machiavelli advocated for cruelty and deception as ends in themselves. We get the word Machiavellian from him, right? Meaning cunning, immoral, manipulative. But that's like judging a cookbook solely by the picture of a burnt dish. It misses the entire recipe. He wasn't saying be cruel for fun. He was saying if you need to be cruel to stabilize the state and prevent greater suffering down the line, then you must be decisive and swift. It was about pragmatism, not sadism. And this distinction is crucial. Let's dive into the core of the misunderstanding, the separation of politics from conventional morality. Machiavelli observed that leaders who tried to stick to strict ethical ideals often failed spectacularly in the real world. Why? Because the world, as he saw it, wasn't idealistic. It was full of ambitious, self-interested people. He famously wrote that a prince must learn how not to be good and use that knowledge as needed. This isn't an endorsement of evil. It's a stark acknowledgement of reality. If your rival is willing to lie, cheat, and steal to gain influence, and you refuse to even consider those tactics when absolutely necessary to defend your position, you're setting yourself up for failure. Think about it in modern terms. A CEO who is unwilling to make tough calls about layoffs or restructuring might bankrupt the company, hurting everyone in the long run. A politician who refuses to engage in strategic maneuvering might lose an election to someone far less ethical. Machiavelli was describing the effective ruler, not necessarily the virtuous one by traditional standards. Now, let's get into the types of states Machiavelli discussed. This is crucial because it shows he wasn't advocating a one-size-fits-all approach to power. He differentiated between hereditary principalities, easy to maintain, new principalities, very difficult, and mixed principalities, a combination. And here's where it gets really interesting. He analyzed how to acquire and maintain authority in each. For new principalities, he argued that acquiring them through one's own arms and ability, virtù, was more sustainable than relying on luck or others' arms. But even then, he warned that new rulers often had to commit well-used cruelties. What are well-used cruelties? Acts of violence necessary for securing power, done swiftly and decisively, and then not repeated. Cruelty used once to establish order is different from ongoing, arbitrary cruelty that breeds resentment. He contrasted this with badly used cruelties, which start small but grow, creating instability. This brings us to two of his most famous concepts, virtù and fortuna. Despite the modern translation, virtù isn't just virtue in the moral sense. It's about skill, strength, ability, drive, strategic acumen, the capacity to act decisively and shape events. It's the force of will and competence a leader brings. Fortuna, on the other hand, is luck, chance, fortune, the external circumstances you can't control. Machiavelli believed that while fortuna can present opportunities, It's virtù that allows a leader to seize them. He used the analogy of a river. Fortuna is the unpredictable flood, but virtù is building the dikes and canals to manage its power. A leader with high fortuna but low virtù will be swept away. A leader with high virtù can navigate even the worst fortuna. This is a lesson in agency, in taking control of what you can control, even when the external world is chaotic. It's about preparation, skill, and the courage to act. This is where many interpretations become misleading. Machiavelli discussed the importance of appearing to have certain qualities, even if you don't always possess them. He said it's often better for a prince to appear merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and religious than to actually be all those things all the time. Does this mean he advocated for constant, deceitful hypocrisy? No. It means he understood the psychology of leadership and public perception. People react to appearances. If a leader is always merciful, they might be exploited. If they are never seen as merciful, they'll be hated. The key is knowing when to display which quality. It's about strategic communication and understanding your audience. It's the difference between being ineffective and being overly aggressive. It's about wielding your reputation like a tool. Think of a skilled negotiator. They don't reveal their bottom line immediately, right? They manage perceptions. Machiavelli was talking about that on a state level. So why the massive disconnect between Machiavelli's actual text and his popular image? Several reasons. First, context is king. As we said, The Prince was a specific response to a specific time and place. It wasn't intended as a universal ethical treatise. Second, the Renaissance was a brutal period. Power struggles, assassinations, constant warfare, these were the norms. Machiavelli was describing the realpolitik of his day, not prescribing an ideal. He was a political scientist, an observer, more than a moral philosopher. Third, later interpretations, often by people who hadn't read The Prince carefully or who had their own agendas, cemented the evil genius image. The word Machiavellian itself became a pejorative, eclipsing the subtleties of his work. It's easier to paint someone as purely evil than to grapple with complex, uncomfortable truths about power and human nature. All right, enough history. How do we use this now? The real Machiavelli isn't about being a villain. It's about understanding the dynamics of influence, authority, and decision-making in the real world. Lesson 1. Recognize that not everyone plays by the same rules. To succeed, you need to understand the landscape, including the less savory aspects, and be prepared to navigate them. This doesn't mean adopting them wholesale, but acknowledging their existence. Lesson 2. Focus on developing your skills, your decisiveness, your ability to act effectively under pressure. Don't just hope for good luck. Prepare yourself to capitalize on opportunities and overcome obstacles. This is about competence and agency. Lesson 3. Master the art of perception. Understand how you are viewed and how to strategically present yourself. This isn't about being fake, it's about conscious communication. Know when to be firm, when to be diplomatic, when to show strength, and when to show empathy. It's about wielding your qualities effectively, not being a slave to them or to others' expectations. And finally, Lesson 4. Be decisive. Indecision is often more damaging than a poorly executed decision. Machiavelli stressed the importance of swift, firm action when necessary to establish order and achieve goals. Don't get paralyzed by analysis or fear of making the wrong move. Make the best move you can, and then commit. So, there you have it. Machiavelli, stripped of the Hollywood villainy, revealed as a sharp observer of human nature and a pragmatic strategist. He wasn't promoting evil for its own sake. He was teaching effectiveness in a flawed world. Now I want to hear from you. What's the biggest misconception you've ever encountered about leadership or strategy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to read them. If you found this deep dive into Machiavelli valuable, make sure you subscribe for more breakdowns that cut through the noise and get to the real strategies. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.